Her Private Hell might be the strangest widely released film this year. Critics denounce Her Private Hell as pretentious. They pan it for being incoherent, boring, and prioritizing style over substance. They're right, but what they're missing is why Her Private Hell needed to be pretentious, because its pretentiousness represents one of the last uncompromised acts of auteur filmmaking in mainstream cinema.
You either have it or you don't.
Critics cite the film's lack of narrative coherence as a main criticism. They argue that, despite identifiable disparate story threads, the plot fails to congeal into a greater whole. Going even further, they argue that attempting to dissect the plot is pointless, as the movie is meaningless. To respond to that, I agree with this criticism. However, Her Private Hell is only incoherent and meaningless insofar as it defies explanation. This is a hallmark of the film's director, Nicolas Winding Refn, who's one of the most polarizing mainstream directors working today. Her Private Hell, his newest film, is an exaltation of his subconscious, where he pressurizes all of his favorite tropes into a crystal and zaps it with one of his monogrammed ray guns. The shiny bits that remain are truly puzzling and punishing, ultimately playing better as a fragmented memory than a cohesive cinematic experience. Perhaps there really isn't anything more to Her Private Hell than that. But isn't that already more than enough for people who love movies? I saw Her Private Hell in the theater last week. At my screening, I was the only audience member in attendance, and the film just made me happy. I don't know, I was smiling throughout the entire runtime. To be clear, I'm not pretending to understand anything about the movie. I honestly don't, but I'm just overjoyed that it exists. That said, I'm going to attempt, from memory, to briefly explain what the story of Her Private Hell means. Spoiler warning. Considering that it's Refn, it feels intuitive to claim that, as an overall piece, Her Private Hell is a reflexive statement about cinema. There are 3 zones in the world of this film which seem to coexist forever: real life, performance, and movies. Originally, I interpreted the crystal realm as heaven. After more thought, though, I concluded that Refn prioritizes the world of cinema over the kingdom of God. Elle, Sophie Thatcher's character, seemingly flows from the hotel, real life, to acting, performance, and to the crystal realm, movies. Kay, Charles Melton's character, similarly splits his time between his investigation, real life, and fighting the Yakuza, performance. At the end of the film, Elle and Kay finally meet in the crystal realm. At some point, the Leatherman, the masked serial killer on the loose, is said to represent the devil. However, my gut's screaming out that the Leatherman's nothing but a humble cipher. After defeating the Leatherman, Elle and Kay achieve a sort of blissful cinematic enlightenment, as they both fully accomplish their goals. I'm not even fully convinced that Elle and Kay are meant to be real people. It makes way more sense for them to be characters on reels of film. All things considered, Her Private Hell feels surprisingly optimistic for a Refn movie. It seems to be saying that, by interfacing with cinema, the artist can achieve true enlightenment. Critics point to the film's perceived prioritization of style over substance as a main criticism. They argue that, since the movie lacks an underlying thematic reason to justify them, the sumptuous visuals are ultimately worthless. To respond to that, I agree with this criticism. Regarding the style over substance allegations, what makes Her Private Hell notable is its intentional pastiche. This movie is clearly inspired by giallo, Italian slasher flicks from the 70s, which are infamous for their extreme stylization. By making his own version of a giallo, Refn seems to be directly goading his critics. After being repeatedly labeled as a style over substance filmmaker, he ventured into the genre that's historically been the most associated with style over substance. With this latest film, Refn's attempt at reviving giallo proved so successful because he actually understands what makes the genre tick. At its best, giallo combines an exquisite style with gross and sleazy content, a fantastic melding of the highbrow and lowbrow. Her Private Hell roundly succeeds in that regard, as it seamlessly combines Refn's signature neon dreamscape with bluntly fetishistic dialogue and imagery. To name just a bit of the strange happenings going on here, Sophie Thatcher barks like a dog, Charles Melton gets repeatedly spanked, and the mass slasher villain is, again, referred to as the Leatherman. Now, speaking as a Giallo fan, it's admirable how far Refn goes to expand and deconstruct the genre. For example, take how Refn employs references to movies that inspired him, like Rear Window and Blood and Black Lace. These references appear plainly enough to denote reverence for film history, yet their true intentions always remain opaque, shrouded with artificially imposed geographic schisms and psychological barriers. For example, take the scene in which we see Leatherman kill for the first time. The murder is presented in a similar fashion to Rear Window, although Sisters might be the more fitting analog, as the viewer watches the building across the street from Elle's perspective. Once Elle witnesses the murder, there's a slight shock, sure, from the surprise and gore, but the sequence on a whole is eerily devoid of suspense. It feels mistaken to even refer to it as a set piece. What makes this sequence notably strange, however, is how, immediately upon the protagonist witnessing the murder, the movie fades to black. It's a bizarre transition, as it completely withholds the aftermath of the scene and the protagonist's reaction from the viewer. Her Private Hell is littered with formal decisions like this, which at once feel inexplicable yet totally authentic. Due to this, thankfully, Her Private Hell never feels like pastiche for pastiche's sake. Refn must have recognized, rather, that the representative visuals and music, shout out to Pino Donaggio, of Giallo would provide the most effective framework for unlocking his subconscious. And by taking his love of film history and funneling it through his own personal fixations like this, he communicates the most through his style, which renders it into substance. In other words, although there may not be a thematic or narrative reason for Her Private Hell's visual and sonic landscape, there's certainly a personal one. Her Private Hell is fearless. More specifically, it's that brand of fearlessness that's only achieved after years of repeatedly failing. After all, what other mainstream director is psycho enough to helm an experimental Hollywood giallo?
This is gonna be hell.
A dissenter may argue that, despite understanding why the movie's strangeness may be worthy of appreciation, that wouldn't change the fact that it's simply boring. To respond to that, I agree with this criticism. While I sincerely appreciate the virtues of Her Private Hell, it can be an admittedly tough watch. However, this complete willingness to alienate almost reads as a dare to the audience to stop watching. With all of its dull pauses, droning long takes, and robotic performances, this is the most formally restrained that Refn's ever been. In an interview, Refn claimed that Her Private Hell was partially inspired by scrolling. Whatever the hell that means. Yet, Her Private Hell is so slow that it reads as a protest against the incessantly dopamine-fueled dregs of scrolling and streaming culture. When comprehensively examined like this, Refn's choices seem to evoke a sort of Erich von Stroheim effect. To be more specific, as Straub observed, Stroheim's goal was to show the viewer magnificence, but to make them feel the opposite. Now, Her Private Hell feels just like that, but for genre movies and scrolling on your phone. To tastefully rephrase Straub, Refn's goal is to show the viewer dopamine and make them feel the opposite. On that note, despite appropriating a litany of giallo tropes, he almost completely drains the genre of its trashy fun. In doing this, he effectively directs a movie that's more like a commercial. Unlike the standard Hollywood movie, however, Refn doesn't seem to be trying to brainwash the viewer or sell them anything. Rather, since his films are so painfully personal, perhaps that's why he made Her Private Hell as slow as possible. At this point, I wouldn't even be surprised if he preferred that the audience looked away from his films. It's totally possible that Refn's inspired by Tarkovsky's rage baiting, like that extended shot of the river at the beginning of Solaris. For better or worse, Her Private Hell reads as a revealing confessional. Nothing more, nothing less. In that sense, it's the purest form of art for art's sake, which somehow escaped the corporate machine and touched down safely in theaters.
You're welcome.
All in all, Her Private Hell's mere existence is a cause for celebration. Receiving a new piece from a filmmaker, pretentious or not, who actually gives a fuck about the medium is such a rare treat. Considering the direction that the industry's headed, it's unclear how many more Her Private Hells we have left, so it's crucial to cherish each and every one of them. Most importantly, it finally gave me a reason to pay for a movie ticket. On that note, all of my friends want me to go see The Odyssey. Hell, I'd almost certainly enjoy it, but I just don't care enough to go pay to see it. However, I did care enough to go see Her Private Hell, a movie I knew I wouldn't enjoy. I'd rather support an artist's spectacular failure than watch a corporation succeed.